Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Ship and Read. Today I'll be doing my Asian book recommendations. So if you have actually watched my May TBR, I had briefly hinted that I'll be recommending 5 books this time around, and that is true. I guess technically it's like 6 books in a way because one of them is like a series, but overall 5 books, and I cannot wait to share them with you guys. So the first book that I want to recommend is The Henna Artist by Alka Joshi. I actually talked about this book a little bit more in my Goodreads historical fiction vlog, so I'll link that somewhere above in case you want to check that out. So this book is about a young woman, Lakshmi, who ends up escaping her abusive husband and runs off to a small city called Jaipur, where she is now a henna artist for the rich woman of Jaipur. And all she wants to do is to build an independent life for herself, and that includes building her own house. So throughout the book you really see her just talking about her house a lot and just hoping to achieve her dream, which is to have her own house finally. But one day she's actually confronted by her abusive husband, and her husband somehow shows up bringing a young child in tow. Turns out this child is actually her younger sister that she never knew about. So now she has to take care of her younger sister and somehow manage this delicate social balance of the Indian upper class. This book was incredibly riveting. I really like learning about the social classes in India, and I felt like this book, because it was taken in the 1950s, I believe, of a small town in India, it gave me a lot of insight in terms of why she made her decisions, especially regarding her younger sister. And it was also just very educational for me just to learn more about Indian culture in the 1950s. And this book was just written so richly and lushly, and I felt like I learned so much throughout this book, and I couldn't help but just become so invested in Lakshmi and her younger sister. The one thing that I would say that I mentioned multiple times already in multiple different videos, I feel like I've talked about this book a few times now, but I would definitely have loved to see her younger sister's POV, just because her younger sister came to Jaipur when she was only 13 years old, and she came from a very rural small town where there weren't a lot of social classes differences, I suppose, and she was treated very differently there versus how she was in a city. And so it would have just been so interesting to see like her insight in terms of what it was like for her to come to a city and see her older sister that she never met before, and somehow just, you know, live with her and just deal with the city, new life, as well as her older sister. So I just feel like that would have been just super fascinating to read her insight and some of the decisions that she made, because she ends up playing a very pivotal role in this book. So yeah, that was the only thing that I would say about this book, but overall it was just so lush, and I love the writing, the descriptive writing, and it was just so immersive, I want to say. But yeah, definitely recommend this book if you haven't checked this out already. Alright, then this next book that I want to recommend is The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. So this book just follows Stella Lane, who finds people to be quite confusing, and she rather deal with analytics and math, and she also has Asperger's, so that makes her a little bit more socially awkward, I would suppose, and that's also another reason why she doesn't want to deal with people. She finds them confusing, and so she also has very little experience in love. So one day she decides that she needs to get some experience, get some practice in, and she ends up hiring an escort who turns out to be Michael. And so what turns from practicing kisses to something so much more. This book was just freaking adorable. I do kind of recommend her second book as well, The Bride Test, but I definitely love The Kiss Quotient so much more. And my favorite part would definitely just be Stella learning to communicate with people around her more and more, and becoming more comfortable and coming out of her shell. And this book was also just so steamy. There are just so many steamy moments in this book. You're just like, wow, but in a really good way. There's also own voices for Asperger's in Vietnamese culture, so definitely some great representation there. Alright, then this next book slash series I want to recommend is actually The Poppy War, as well as The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. I'm only recommending these two because I haven't actually read the third book yet, but so far these two books are just so intense and so well written. So the whole series follows a young girl called Rin, who is actually an orphan from the Rooster province in the south. And one day she decides to take this Keiju, which is this empire-wide state test, where the purpose of it is to find talented young people and to bring them into the top military academy in Singard. I don't know if it's pronounced like Sinigard or Singard, but yeah, either way, Sin Guard, something like that. And she surprises everyone because she not only passes the exam, but she becomes first in the entire empire, which ends up earning her a spot in the top military academy in Sinigard. Once she gets there though, she finds out that being different isn't exactly a good thing, especially in a world where the students are from families who are the most powerful and the most wealthy in the empire. She also realizes early on that she has a mythical power, a power that is mostly lost in the mystical world of shamanism. And while there's currently peace in the beginning of the book, she realizes that she must learn to control her power soon because it might actually change everything. This book, like I said already, this series is just so rich, so detailed, and so well written, and I just absolutely fell in love with this world that is inspired by ancient China and has a lot of inspirations from historical events, Chinese folklore, and so much more. There were just so many parallels between real life people and events with scenes that played out in this book. And while Rin is obviously the protagonist, she's very much an anti-hero. She made a lot of decisions throughout this book that weren't exactly the best decisions, but at the same time I kind of understood where she was coming from because there were certain incidences where there weren't a lot of choices available to her, and I can see that she was trying to make the best of what there was available. And while I didn't agree with her choices, I could understand where she was coming from. So yeah, I definitely recommend the series if you're looking for like a very richly inspired book by ancient China. Has a lot of inspirations from historical events, real life people that were just very accurate, and obviously with like a mythical fantasy twist to it. And there were just so much about the series that your emotions are just constantly going up and down. There is a war in here obviously, so there will be a lot of trigger warnings related to wars such as gore, blood, rape, violence, etc. So just definitely be mindful of that before going into it. It is very detailed, very rich. There is a lot of scenes in this book that are just hard to read, but I think the author did an incredible job with portraying everything. So yeah, I want to read the third book as soon as possible. I wish I had finished it before this video, but I don't have a copy of it. I'm still debating if I want to buy it. I do want to buy it, but they're just like so expensive these days. And yeah, I'm just kind of like trying to hold off on purchasing books recently, so that's also why I'm like a little bit hesitant to purchase it. I'm definitely not as like intense on purchasing books as I was in the past. I'm definitely trying to be mindful of the space I have these days and like how many books I can actually get. But yeah, so anyways, point is, amazing series. Definitely recommend it if you have not picked up this series yet. Alright, then this next book that I am recommending is The Last Tang Standing by Lauren Ho. So I actually did talk about this book a little bit more in my June ARC reading vlog from last year if you want to check that out. It has more details in terms of my thoughts throughout reading this book and a more descriptive detail of what I felt after finishing it. But yeah, I'll link that somewhere above and down below in case you want to check that out. So this book is about Andrea, who is in her mid-30s, and she has a very successful life, very great career, awesome friends, and an amazing condo. The only thing left that she wants is to have a promotion and become partner in her law firm. Oh, and perhaps some romance on the side, since she is the last person in her family who hasn't been married. Hence the title of this book, Last Tang Standing. This book was actually written in a very unique format. It was written in all diary formats, so you get a really good insight on the main character, and that might not actually be a good thing. I just found her character for the most part to be kind of selfish and shallow. It was a lot about finding a rich husband just so she can satisfy her family's expectations, as well as what she can do to further her life. Like, I mean, I loved her ambition. Like, she was ambitious. I would definitely give her that, and that is always a good thing, but I felt like the way how she went about it is very shallow and kind of self-centered. At the same time though, I found this book to be incredibly hilarious. Just so many comedic moments simply because of what she said and what she did that were just so outrageous that you couldn't help but cracking up. But on the flip side though, I said that even though I found her to be very selfish, very shallow, very self-centered, all that stuff, I also found her to be kind of relatable in certain ways, because there were certain things that she would say in her diary that I will be like, damn, that's exactly sometimes how I feel, just like personally. and I can totally see where she's coming from. So like she basically was someone with like no filter. Oh, and if you really like slow burn romances, I highly recommend this book as well. There was an incredibly slow burn, drawn out romance in this book that nothing really happened until like the very end. So if you really like those like super drawn out romances, a lot of, you know, hints here and there, then yeah, this romance is great and definitely for you. But the main reason why I ended up giving this book 4 stars, they probably like all you said are like negative things with the characters for the most part. I just felt like even though she was so negative, the ending was incredibly cute and I felt like it was worth the entire book. Not only that, but like I said already, there's just a lot of funny moments throughout this book that, I don't know, just brought a lot of humor, and overall like, it just being a really good time. Anyways, I'm finally at my last book to recommend this time, and that is Forest of Souls by Lori M. Lee. This book follows a girl called Saoirse who plans to be the next royal spy, and everything becomes derailed when her best friend is actually killed by shamans. And not only that, but she ends up saving and reviving her best friend. Now she is known as the first soul guide in living memory. And so because of this, she is actually summoned to the Deadwood that is actually reigned by the Spider King. The Deadwood is this ancient forest that has dominion over spirits, and somehow the Spider King has a way to control them and uses it as a way to preserve peace among the countries. However, for some reason, the Deadwood is becoming more wild and untamed, and so now she is the only one who can tame them, or the Deadwood can claim her best friend's life. This was a very intricate magic system. I loved reading about all of the components of it. I mean, there were familiars, there were dragons involved, there were elemental magic, there was soul magic. There was just a lot of layers to this magic system, and I found it so fascinating. I did find the main character Saoirse to be a bit reckless at times, but I also understood where she was coming from because her main priority was just to find her place in the world, and the ending was just intense. I actually have the sequel right over here, and I'm planning to read it sometime soon, so I cannot wait to find out what will happen next and just like dive back into this intricate magic system and just fall in love with the characters, the world, etc., like all over again. So yeah, I highly recommend this book if you're looking for an amazing debut. It's filled with magic. But yeah, anyways, that's all to say for this video. Let me know down below which books have you read by Asian authors, Asian protagonists, etc., that you would like to recommend to me. And if you have read any of these books, what did you guys think about them? But as always, if you do like this video, please give me a thumbs up. It really does help out my channel. And if you'd like to see more content of me, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. As always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!